In this subject, we have started second chapter, which is individual behavior. In individual behavior, we started by talking about attitude, and then we moved on to perception. In our last video, we talked about what is perception. Now today, we will be understanding how a perception process happens. Also, we will see that what are the errors in perception. Now, as in the last video, we saw that perception is the process of taking in an information from the outside world. And because we develop certain kinds of judgments for that information, it affects our work. Suppose a person perceives another person wrongly, then it is going to affect the organization. When there are errors in perception, the human behavior will have a lot of problem. And due to that, the work will also be affected. So it is very important for us to understand these 2 points. Number one, how the process of perception happens, and what are the errors in perception. So first of all, there are 3 steps in the process of perception. The first step starts with selection. Now the world is full of a lot of information, and we take in information by seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, or everything at the same time. Now when so much of information comes to us, we will only pay attention to certain information. That means that we select some information based on our interest or something that attracts our attention. So this step is called the selection of information. Next, when we have the information, we start processing it in our mind. This is called organization of information. When we process an information in our mind, we try to categorize it based on certain similarities or differences. We try to compare the information with that we already have, and we categorize so that we can make a meaning out of it. The organization of information happens based on our own cognitive patterns. That means whatever we have learned from the past, we will organize the information in that manner. Once we categorize and organize the information, next we start giving meaning to it. That is called interpretation. Interpretation actually means we start judging the information. So when we organize an information, that is, we categorize it into certain things, and then we try to interpret it, which means that we try to give it a new meaning or something that we can attach to. So this is called interpretation, which is the last stage of perception. In fact, interpretation leads to a judgment. That is, in this stage of interpretation, we decide whether we like the information or we don't like the information. Now in our last video, we talked about a woman who entered a wedding wearing formals. And there we say that she looks awkward just because of that situation. Otherwise, people may judge her to be having a good dressing sense if that person has gone for a corporate meeting. So taking that example, let us understand the perception process. So first of all, the lady enters the wedding occasion and she is wearing the formals. Now at that point of time, because she is completely different, she attracts the attention of many people around. Now depending on different things, some people will look at her and some will not. That is called selection process. Now when the information is taken by other people, they start to organize in the mind. That is, they categorize it. How do they categorize? They will start thinking that what is this person doing in the corporate attire in the wedding occasion? Or they will start thinking that this is the wedding occasion where everyone is supposed to wear traditionals or things which are suitable for wedding, and this is the person which is wearing something which is suitable for corporates. This is called organization. That means you are separating both the information. You are either comparing or similarizing it. Now when you are comparing, you saw that both of them are not matching. So then the next step comes, that is interpreting. So here the interpretation will be based on personality or attitudes of many people. So if a person has an attitude where the person always looks at the mistake of others, will judge this person to have a very bad dressing sense. So from this information, person A has interpreted that this lady is having a very bad dressing sense. Now there is another person, person B, who also takes in this information, who again organizes the information, compares it, categorizes it, and finds that it is not similar. The attire is different. But the personality of person B is acceptance. This person thinks deeply rather than judging things on its face. So this person will feel a respect for this lady because the person starts thinking that this busy lady has directly come from her office or a meeting to attend the wedding, because the person whose wedding is there must be very important for this lady. That is really very commendable. So how, based on different personality, the interpretation changes? So number one, through this example, we saw how the perception process happens. And number two, through this example, we also saw that interpretation or perception can be different for different people of the same thing. Now, this is because there are many factors that influences the perception. In this case, the personality type or the attitude of person A and B influence the perception process. So if these factors influence the perception process at different point of time and in different intensity, then perception will be different for different people, and there may be errors in perception. So that means perception may be completely different from the reality. So let us see what are the errors in perception. So the first error in perception is illusion, then hallucination, selective perception is there is a halo effect, then there is stereotyping, which is again an error in perception, then there is similarity, also there is a horn effect, and lastly there is contrast. So let us see one by one each of these errors. So the first error is illusion. You all must have heard the word illusion. Illusion means creating an experience about something which may not be the reality. To give you an example, have a look at this famous picture. Some of you may see a young lady in this picture, while others may see an old lady. This is a classic example of visual illusion. Another example of illusion is that when you are in a desert or when you are on a road and it's summer afternoon, you may see a mirage. So that is an illusion which is created by the refraction of light, and you may feel that there is water ahead of you, but in reality there is no water. So this illusion is an error in perception. Now how does this apply to organizations? Many people may always see things in illusion. They may always perceive things which are not there, and they may always perceive things wrongly. For example, you may feel that someone is really motivating you, and that is why you do a lot of work for that person. But in fact, that person has created an illusion that that person really appreciates you. That person has just used you. or wants you to do a lot of work and will take the credit. That is one of the illusions. Another error in perception is hallucination. Now hallucination means seeing what is not there. Now many extreme cases of mental illness shows hallucination, but also in our daily routine or normal routine, people may have hallucinations because they think too much about a certain thing. To give you an example, an employee who always feels low self-esteem and feels that people judge him or her negatively will always feel that everyone around are talking about him or her. So as you can see, this boy thinks that there are so many people around him who are shouting at him. Similarly, such kinds of hallucination also occurs to normal people. But generally hallucination occurs when the cases are very, very extreme. The third error in perception is selective perception. Now selective perception means you will see what you want to see, and that is based on your own attitude or personality. So as you can see in this picture, which is again very popular picture, where one person sees that the glass is half empty while the other person sees that the glass is half full. So both of them are correct in a manner that the glass is half filled. But the thing is that the way they perceive the situation will make them make efforts in their work. For example, a person who sees a half full glass is very positive and motivated. That person will always be grateful about what is there and will try to create more and more. While the person who looks at half empty glass always complains about what is not there. And that is why that person will be stuck in his career. So the selective perception also becomes an error in the perception. Next, there is a halo effect. Now the meaning of halo effect is that there is a halo on the head of a person. The halo is not actually there, but it tries to say that a person carries an impression throughout, which is a positive impression, just because that person could either create a first impression, which was very positive, or that person is extremely good in one thing. And when the person is extremely good in one thing, then that person will always be judged as good in all the other things, irrespective of the fact. To give you an example, a student who is sincere throughout and gets good marks in all the tests will also get very good grades in the assignment, despite of many mistakes that that student has done, because there is a halo effect, and whenever the teachers will look at that student, the teacher will always have a positive effect of that student. So this is called a halo effect. Next error in perception is stereotyping. Now the stereotyping means you kind of identify a person based on the group that person belongs to. So the famous stereotyping are that of the gender stereotyping. For example, we say that women are always like this, or men are always like this, or women always do this, or men always do this. That is called stereotyping. So when a person belonging to a particular culture or community enters an organization, everyone will perceive that person to have the same characteristics and qualities which are general to that community. But in reality, that may not be the case. So that is why again it creates an error in perception. The next one is similarity. Now what is the meaning of similarity? Now whenever you see a thing which is similar to your past experience, you will perceive all the characteristics of that thing to be the same as that of your past experience. As you can see over here, there are many people standing in front of this 8, or you can even say infinity. But the person who is standing in front of it looks the number 8. Another person will perceive it in a spelling EIGHT 8, while one person perceives it to be infinity. And yet another person perceives it to be the symbol of DNA. So the same thing is seen in a different manner by different people because they had some similar kind of experience in the past. Again, this example is also an example of the factors that influences perception, in which we talked about the target, the size, the motion, the nature of the target. So here, the direction of the target, from which direction everyone is looking, based on that, they will perceive it. The next error of perception is horn effect. Now, horn effect is completely opposite to that of the halo effect. So just like in the halo effect, we see a halo on the head of a person, the horn effect, we see a devil in a person. So suppose a person has made a mistake initially or is bad at one thing, everyone will judge that person to be bad at everything. So this is called the horn effect. And the last one is contrast. So contrasting means comparing things. You kind of compare things and then you judge things. So when you perceive certain thing or a person and then you want to judge that person, you will get another person and then try to compare that with the other person. So when such kind of contrasting is done, again there is an error in perception. So I hope today you have understood the process of perception and the errors in perception. Thank you.